Hello and welcome to this series of videos for Bio 153. In these videos, we're going to be talking about blood flow, blood pressure, and blood vessels. In this particular video, I'm going to be introducing you to the blood vessel types. Okay, so I just want to start by reminding you of the path of blood flow through the cardiovascular system. If we look here, we're looking at a schematic figure of the blood flow through the cardiovascular system, right? So it is functionally correct, but not anatomically correct. So just to remind you, if we start here in the left heart, we have blood leaving the left heart through the aorta. It's going to go through the systemic circulation, come back into the heart via the vena cava to the right heart. And then we're going to have our blood go through the pulmonary circulation, and we're going to return to the left heart. As blood goes through either the systemic circulation or the pulmonary circulation, it is going to encounter these 5 blood vessel types. We've got the arteries, the arterioles, the capillaries, the venules, and the veins. Okay, so here arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, and veins. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to be talking about sort of the structural differences between these different blood vessel types and then the implications of those differences for their function. All right, so I just want to start off showing you this table that shows you some of the differences between the blood vessel types, some of the characteristics of the blood vessel types. So you can see their diameter here, their wall thickness, and then blood vessels are composed of these their walls are composed of these 4 tissue types: endothelium, elastic tissue, smooth muscle, and fibrous tissue in varying amounts. So I want to tell you a little bit about the functions of these types of tissues, and then we will take a look specifically at the specific blood vessel types and their composition. Okay, so endothelial tissue is it's basically a type of epithelium, and it's inside of every blood vessel, right? So you can see that right here. Okay, elastic tissue is well, it's elastic. It's going to allow the walls of the blood vessel to recoil in response to pressure. So if you stretch it, it'll snap back. Okay, so that's what elastic tissue does. Smooth muscle is smooth muscle, right? It's going to be able to contract, and that's going to allow your blood vessel to change its diameter, right? So if it contracts, you're going to make the diameter smaller. If it relaxes, the diameter will get thicker, okay? Fibrous tissue is sort of there for structural support and protection. It's just kind of holds everything in place, sort of. All right, let's move on. Okay, so now let's take a look at each blood vessel type individually, starting with the arteries. Okay, so if you look at the arteries, this is the composition of the wall of an artery. And I'd like to just sort of point out a couple characteristics here. So we've got quite a bit of fibrous tissue, and that's going to make the walls kind of thick, kind of stiff, which means that it's kind of hard to expand the wall of the artery. But it does happen. Actually, we expand the walls of our arteries all the time, but it requires quite a bit of like energy input to do that. And then we have quite a bit of elastic tissue in the arteries, which is going to allow those walls to recoil after we stretch them. So they'll snap back after we stretch them, okay? Moving on to the arterioles, you can see that the arterioles are composed of just endothelium and smooth muscle. And I sort of want to emphasize the smooth muscle here because the smooth muscle, like I mentioned before, is going to contract or relax to allow more or less blood through them. And in that way, they actually act as kind of a gatekeeper or a regulator of where your blood is directed within your cardiovascular system. And we'll be talking about that more later. Okay, moving on to the capillaries. The capillaries have just one endothelial layer as their wall, okay? And that kind of makes sense in light of their function, because we have materials exchange happening across that wall. In order for materials to be exchanged between the outside and the inside of the capillary, we need a thin wall for materials to diffuse across that wall. So that is why we have our thin wall in our capillaries. Venules, I don't really have anything to say about venules. They connect the capillaries to the veins. They're thicker than the capillaries. All right, let's move on. All right, veins. Okay, so veins have all four types of tissues that make up their walls. I do want to point out that they have less elastic tissue than the arteries, which allows them to expand without snapping back as much, okay? So they're very distensible. They expand easily, but they don't snap back easily. I also want to tell you that I guess it's not shown in this figure actually, but oh yeah, they have a larger diameter than arteries, and they're also more numerous than arteries. And all of these characteristics in combination allow the veins to act as a sort of volume reservoir for blood in our system. So you may remember in the last lecture, I told you about how a huge amount of our blood volume is in the veins, about 60% of our blood volume. And these characteristics are responsible for that, right? We have a lot of veins, they have a large diameter, and they don't snap back. They don't have very much elastic tissue. So that allows them to hold a lot of blood in them.